I've got too many slides and lots of illustrations. So what I'm going to do is talk about some of the secrets of the university's art. So how did the project begin? Well, it actually began with President Lieberman saying that she wished that somebody would have a class do research on the materials in her house. It also happened to be at a time that I didn't have a class for the fall, so I asked Sean Bernard. He said okay, and I created Honors 306, 351, Genesis of Art at the University of La Verne. But I discovered almost immediately there was no comprehensive list of the university's art. There were a number of lesser lists. Here's some examples. The most important and the largest one was the one that Felicia and Ann here are creating at the Cultural and Natural History Museum. But you see there's all kinds of them, including one from campus planning, which had 9 works on it, including the rock. So that's where this started. I added this as a requirement, of course. So in addition to writing a research paper, in addition to creating an original work of art, they also had to help create this list. Students were assigned buildings to survey, and 2, they also were asked to get works at the archives and at the cultural collections. It turned out to be a much larger task than the class could do. So, why does the university need a comprehensive list of art? To avoid losses, to prevent damage, to encourage conservation, and we'll show you all of these, to expand the knowledge. What is the university's art collection? What is that painting that I walk by every day? And to keep a record of what the university owns, because, quite frankly, a lot of it has walked away. And to accommodate art history study by students and faculty. Here's some losses. The original painting of W.I.T. Hoover that was in the library from 1952 until the law school moved in disappeared and never was found. The list of artworks from the president's office that I just showed you includes one that was donated by Georgie Paro. Nobody knows what happened to it. Joella Jean Mahoney's book lists a work called Dawn in the quote-unquote president's receptions office. Where is it? I don't know. Over 77 artworks that were listed on the property management in 2003 have been sold. Have been sold. The only thing on this list that's still here are the 2 volumes on the Jade collection, which were surreptitiously picked up by a professor and now are safely kept in the archives. To avoid losses, here's some works that have been demolished or replaced, including the University of La Verne bookstore statement. The artist is here. Brian Morley did that. When you can say, well, we had to tear things down. Were they documented? No, they weren't documented. To avoid losses, what were we thinking? The photographs collection that now are graces the hallway outside the president's office were stuck in that closet for a couple of years until Marlin saved them, put them up in the library, and now they're over there. This untitled work has been banished to various closets twice, and was last saved by Jim Brooks. So if you want to see that, it's in Jim Brooks' office now. The William Bradford painting, which I'm going to discuss in the next slide, was in Miller Hall. The first painting that was the first work of art in the university collection was taken from Miller Hall to the president's office, then stuck in storage where it was damaged. And you can see the damage if you wanted to go over and look at it in the library. So here's secret number 1 in the secrets that we have in this lecture that I'm giving. This is the oldest work in La Verne's collections, the longest held, and the one with the highest monetary value. It's the only work by an artist that you can find also in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. You can find in the Huntington is this Bradford. Here's some other damage. And this happens because we haven't documented and thought about it. All this stone was imported from Armenia, and then one day, walk by, it's painted black. It's painted black. Here's some photos that you can go down and see in the editor's hall down in ACB, and you can see the damage on them. Should we conserve them? Should we do something else with them? To expand knowledge, to give us the question, what is art? And some of the things that you'll see here, you won't think is art. Maybe they even shouldn't be here. What should we list or catalog in the university's collection? What are artifacts but not art? What are curios or commercial graphics or knickknacks or tourist souvenirs but not art or artifacts? How are we going to make that decision? We haven't. We haven't. What belongs to the university and what is personal property of faculty, staff, or prospective donors, even if on long-term loan? What should be kept, tossed, conserved, or documented? These are not always easy or straightforward questions, but we're not asking them. Uh-oh. Warning, some people who view this PowerPoint will become very upset. Please be patient with the inclusive. I'm being very inclusive so that we can come back and remove later on if we want. Please don't walk out and protest. But do feel to roll your eyes. After all, it's dark. It's dark. Here's the objective of the list. The objective of the list that the students and I created was to provide a baseline for record of study, conservation, and protection. Record as much art as possible, understanding that some of these works may later be removed from the list because they are not deemed art. Protect and conserve. Accept unavoidable holes in the list at this time so that they can be filled in over time. It's going to take years to this. And defer permanent classification and numbering so that the Department of Art and Art History, Deanna and John and others, and Keith, until they make the decisions on how we go about doing this. So, how are we going to organize the list? Should it be organized by period and geography? Ultimately, we said no, because there's too many judgment calls to be made. This is how I organize my classes, but Stacy back here, and I'll explain that in a minute, helped me realize that wasn't it. Because of this kind of judgment. Okay, are these both contemporary art? Kent gave this to the university. Kent gave it to the university because he didn't want it in his walls, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
My parents gave it to me.
Yeah. So, by definition, they're contemporary. But are they contemporary art? So I didn't want to have to make that decision. How about these? Now, here's one of Brian. Brian did this Plinth. Are these both contemporary art? They certainly fall in the contemporary art time period, but I didn't want to make the decision. They're both sculptures. The other two are both paintings. So we can organize it by type of art. By type of art. And here I want to recognize Stacy McCarroll Kutchuk because she suggested that we organize it by type of art. She even found this cataloging art and architecture online. Turned out to be a very, very helpful piece in approaching this organization. That piece from the Getty suggested that we catalog both collections and individual works. And indeed, we have all kinds of collections. We have all kinds of collections. Now, some of them, of course, we have to perhaps just say they're a collection, like the wonderful collection of Brian Logan mosaics that we have all around campus. Thank you, Brian. But it is a collection, and we can define it that way. So we did. Now, how are we going to define the types of art? And here I'm pulling things that I learned as an undergraduate between splitting and lumping. Should we split or should we lump? And ultimately we decided to do both. So paintings, murals, and watercolors we split out. We split out costumes and textiles. We split out architecture and architectural details. But I couldn't figure out one graphic art from another, so I put them all together. Photography. I mean, we just have an immense amount of photography, and how are we going to do that? But I do want to also note here that some of these choices themselves are judgment calls, including textiles, including costumes, calling photography art. How inclusive should we be? And that was another question we had. You know, what is art? I think all of us would agree without any problem that painting, sculpture, drawing, music, literature, dance, unquestionably. Architecture, yes. What should we document or not document? How about graphic arts? And then as we start moving down, there are other things. Industrial design, you'll see what we put there. How inclusive should we be? Should copies and mass-produced objects be classified? And if so, how? These are three pieces. The two on the left, at least, are on display right now. The third is in the archives. Should we include them? Are they art? these are the types that we ultimately decided to use in the types of art, and you can see it's very open, it's very inclusive. And I'll give you this list again before we actually move into the listing, because I want to talk about the format. This is how we wrote up each of the pieces, and I can say that maybe 4 of the 400 pieces that we've written up so far have everything done. It's a big project that will continue on. And as you see, I took it from Harping, but I also want to thank Felicia, who's here. I want to thank Anne and Dean and John and Ruth, 4 of them who are here and made this project possible. Now, I want to stop very quickly because I fear that, you know, how professors do, they just talk too much. I want to thank some people before we go on. And here are the students that are in that class. Each of these students wrote a paper, and the work that they did made this project possible. Here's their papers. These are the work at Dureur's house, at the University House, and you can see some of them are obscure people, some of them are very well-known people. All of the students are well-known. None of the students are obscure. So here's Jonathan over here, who did the Albrecht Durers. Some of these people we only found a little bit of information on. Tiana, who's here, did a great deal of work on Murals. So it was a great bunch of pieces. Well, I'll come back and talk about some of these others in a few minutes. Courtney did William Bradford. We have 5 Baldassar Kundarts. We have a lot of Mahoney's. And then, of course, Brian, who's here today, and John Hall did a wonderful job in documenting Brian's work. And, of course, as long as I'm at it, because a number of these people are here, and I do want to thank them. So Kent, for his donations, hospitality, and lectures, he had the whole class over to his house. And Dan and John and Ruth, Dan and John are both here, and they gave help with the classification, provided insights, and all of them gave lectures as well. Stacy's here, and she, for the suggested classification system, presenting a lecture. Ben is here for presenting a lecture, and his archival assistants. Anne and Felicia both lectured. They had all this, you know, you can't put a whole class in their place at any one time, so we put a tent in the backyard, and they came and lectured while one inside. So thank you to both of you. One inside here, but Donna is. Donna is, so they're great help from them as well. Thank you. And I also want to recognize some of the artists, and indeed we have several of them here today. Dion's here, and Keith's here, and Brian's here. So thank you, all 3 of you. And then the many donors. The many donors, once again. Kent is here, the others are not. Here, once again, are the lists that I'm going to go through and show you some of these pieces, throw out some issues, let you worry about them. So here's 5 notes. In most of the types presented here, the illustrations are examples, not an exhaustive list. A couple of them, like one woodcut as an example. Illustrations were chosen to suggest the breadth of the collection, show multiple locations, or show other points, not necessarily to showcase the best. Some of these 27 are truly secrets, but others are secrets in plain view. So, architectural details. We have lots of them in various places. Here's 2 pieces from the original hotel. The one I enjoyed the most is this one here. I love this 88. That you can actually, if you look at the blown up photograph, you can see both the 88 and the Alpha and Omega. And then, of course, there's the architecture, and we tried to document that as well. And you say, well, it's here. Well, yeah, it's here today. How many of us remember the old gym? A lot of us remember the old gym. And did we document it fully? Well, we got pieces of it, yes. But did we document it for history? Here's some things that we also documented that are, as an example, former residence halls that are scattered throughout the city and into San Dimas. And then there's the former president's house. Right down the street is the forgotten house of President Studebaker, Davis, and Vosna. Then we have a wonderful basket collection. Here's our next secret here. An incredible basket collection, mainly of Native Americans, but there's also South American and African. Then we have a ceramics collection. And here, I love this. Here's a piece that I was given. I accepted it for the university from one of the oral history people that I visited. His mother had gone to Lawrenceburg College and learned, as you can see, in the picture that we all know, that art class. Well, in the corner, we usually look at the landscapes because we're not realizing that, in fact, the women were being taught to paint their china as well, and we have two pieces, I think it is, and you can see them in the archives as you wish. We have a lot of Native American ceramics as well. One collage that I know of, and I only know it because that's the way Ian identified it in the piece that he and John prepared for an exhibition a couple of years ago. What are we going to do with costumes and textiles? Well, probably most of you would say we shouldn't include them at all. But nevertheless, I'm going to include them, at least for the present. Costumes can be textiles, but not all costumes are textiles. Some textiles can be costumes, but not all textiles are costumes. Here's the problem of trying to make a list, because there's always going to be people who throw scriptwads at you because you didn't do it the right way. Are they art? Are they artifact? Or both? Well, here's some. These are all over, these that I chose are all over at Jaeger House, but of course there's a bunch of them down in the SSAP as well. These are more appropriately, I suppose, in being considered as part of the art collection, but they are useful and interesting. There's a tremendous amount that Felicia and Ann are documenting for us. And then drawings. We have a few drawings. Furniture. Here's a couple of pieces of furniture. Here's one that was built by Richard Scott on our own facilities team down in enrollment management. But here's one that we got documentation largely because of the work of student John Hall. This is the Colorado Governor's Dan Thornton's table. This is a great piece. A great piece. You should come and look at it sometime. And then what do you do with graphic arts? I mean, I can't even tell the difference between some of these. Etchings, glyph-lay, inkjet prints, and I guess glyph-lay and inkjet prints are really the same thing. I'm not really sure. Lithographs, offset prints, serigraphs, etc., etc. And except where it was specifically stated with the piece, we didn't know, I didn't know, so we put them all together. By its very nature, of course, printing produces numerous copies. That's why we print. And so how do you figure out where your copy came in and so forth? We have a few numbered editions, and some are mass-produced. Are they worth catalog? I don't know. That's a question we're going to have to deal with. Unquestionably, etchings, and certainly our Rembrandt. Thank you, Ken.
Thank Rembrandt.
Thank Rembrandt. Then we have Eclairs. I mean, we do now have a new portrait of W.I.T. Hoover, but it was scanned in and printed out, not the original. We have a number of lithographs, including some down in enrollment management. And then I want to say, here's another of our secrets. Here's the university's 3 Albrecht Durer prints. 2 of them at the University House are signed by W. Boyd Dawkins, one in 1866, one in 1876. Who was he? Well, John Lieber, who's here today, confirmed that the signature on is definitely W. Boyd Dawkins. And you can see here from the finding aid to his papers at the Buxton Museum that he was an eminent paleontologist and geologist. He was knighted for that. He also worked in museums and on their boards of trustees and so forth. So he knew a great deal about these kind of things. And here's a little bit more about him. He published this book, Early Man, and if you look at it, several of these illustrations are by self. He was himself a person who could draw. This is from that book. Sometimes when he did maps, he actually put his initials on them. But by and large, most of his detailed drawings, he did not. If you inspect these, here's the one at the University House. And here's a copy of the same print, remember it was multiple prints, in the British Museum. And you can see that this is not one of those prints. So we know that it wasn't by Durer. But did Dawkins do it? I started this multi-continental email exchange, and this is what Ross Westwood, who's the Derbyshire Museum's manager, replied. I would not be surprised if he owned them. Dawkins had a strong interest in art. He was instrumental in the establishment of the Manchester Art Gallery and created the Dawn of Art exhibition there. But I have never heard of him being involved with making art. So we don't know. We don't know. But we know that it's a reproduction, not the original. Here's another one that we should talk about in terms of the Pablo Picasso. They're also a graphic art because it is, well, what is it? Here's the front side, the signature Picasso. There's written in figure stylisée, like 1948. There's a gold seal. There's a number, all kinds of things. However, neither the seal nor the domain Picasso seem to have any official connection with Picasso. Because there's another signature on the back. Thus, while the public face provides symbols and authenticity, the documentation on the back actually says it's a lithograph from Anthony Tetro's studio, and that Tetro was the publisher. You can actually look at the originals in the Picasso Museum, and I have, and there's 3 states of it, as often lithographs have, and this is one of the first states. So, who is Anthony G. Tetro? Notorious for his skill as an art forger, Tony Tetro strove to be faithful, and he did. He made a beautiful, beautiful reproduction. Here's some of the many Los Angeles Times articles when he was pulled into court, and his webpage today boasts that Tetro is the single largest forger of arts in America. And another quote, there are Tetros in a museum around the world, I'm sure. So this is another secret art, secret number 6. So what should we do with them? I asked the art historian here, and John said, you know, they're really worth studying. We should do more research on the Dawkins. We don't need to do any more work on studying and pretending. We have the self-help graphics. I tried to get the symbol that does SFG, but you can't see it. This one over here was almost lost when ACC 206 was renovated as an active learning classroom. So, once again, keep the list, watch the stuff, or it will be damaged or lost. We have a serigraph down in enrollment management in the conference room. We have one woodcut that I know. This is in the library, not in Vinaya's office itself, but in Wayne's office right outside it. Now, how about documenting other things? Look at all these logos we've had. That's wonderful. But let's document them. Let's be proud of these things. How many leopards do we have in the present time? Well, we have a number of leopards all over the place. Document, document, document. These are just a couple of the program logos that you can see posted around. And then we have a number of collections of graphic arts, the citrus art labels in the library and in Hannawell House. The Bloomingdale's shopping bags that Chris Krebs gave us. They're in 3 different buildings here. Angie Anderson's orientation backpacks are on display in Student Affairs. And another example, of course, is the Hall of Fame room. And then what about the discarded ones? You couldn't turn a corner without seeing this last year or the year before. Were they all thrown away? Did we document any of them? It seems to me the beauty of these kinds of pieces that we should be really thinking about documentation. How about industrial design? Do you know how many trash cans we have? And you say, oh, trash can, trash can. You should see, go over to the Founders Hall and see what graces the steps. On both sides of the steps, in perfect classical order, there are these 2 trash cans. Because apparently, and they are quite attractive. We choose industrial art by what we think of metals. We have at least 3. Secret number 12. And mosaics. Look at this. Any of you noticed the mosaic out on the feature lately? The older folks here know about the terrazzo outside of Devore's office, but some of the rest of you don't, that in fact this secret terrazzo mosaic in the flooring in the 2nd level, middle level of Founders Hall has been, the artwork thousands trample but rarely see.
And it says 1926.
Yeah, 1926. And of course, an anonymous. We have no idea who did it. And then Brian. Thank you, Brian. And I put down disappearing because I've already shown you two that have disappeared. How many of you remember the one that used to be on 2nd Street next to where Vista is? That has disappeared. How many of you remember ones that got damaged? The original ones, right down the way here on C Street at Bonita. Were they fixed or something else was substituted? I'll let you go look at them and see. And then we have murals. We all are celebrating this beautiful mural right now, except the two people who want to get their faces off and other faces that are going to go up. We're going to see that very soon. By the time the summer's over, this won't be there as it is now. So we should document it, don't you think? How many of you also think of these as being art? Should they not be documented? Should they not be kept in memory? Now, the truth is, we all know they're there. But what about 50 years from now? Document. Those secret number 50. And then, of course, we have these wonderful murals down on the former packing houses. But lots of musical instruments, beautiful musical instruments, most of them over in Jaeger House, but a few down in the lower level. And then, of course, paintings. I didn't put anywhere near the number of paintings that we have, because we have lots and lots. Ian has graced the university. Every hall has these. And what about this? I fought with the students over to include the rock. They wanted to include the rock. But the truth is, capital planning had only 9 pieces on its list, and one of them was the rock. So, okay. But shouldn't we be documenting some of that? I mean, it's changed all the time. Photography is photography. We have a wonderful photography collections in the photography department, the communications department, the communications, relations, graphics, and so forth. Even if we decide that photography is not art, we need to review, identify, and document, it seems to me. In the garden level, Miller Hall, there's 40,000 down there? It would be nice to have some of them identified so we can show people. There's beautiful stuff down there. Simply listing only the photographs on display at La Verne at the present moment. Look, right here, a whole collection on the wall. Even if we just remember, and you say, well, we'll see them forever. No, they won't see them forever. They'll end up in that closet. When, you remember, this building is changing. It's a chameleon. It's going to change. What's going to happen to those? Let's document them before they're put in the closet. We have photography as an exhibition. All of you probably have passed these in Hoover and haven't taken the time to look at them very often. How about the law school? We tried to document the law school, but we sneaked a few pictures. Historical photography. All of you are definitely aware of this one in the library, but how about this one in the library? This documented the inauguration of Steve Morgan. It was given by the city to Steve Morgan. And if you look at it, you'll see just how tiny the plant was in 1985. And how about this set? It's high up on the wall in Kappa. 7 historical pictures, including Bonita Union High School. Here's the SP Depot. But this is really my favorite of all, because you can still see this is Aoki when it was a bank building and before they took off the front cover. Now, here's the intersection of 3rd and D, because in the 1920s, this was the main drag. In fact, here's the sign, La Verne. Landscape photography, secret number 18. We've got a whole bunch of landscapes that students did down in the Cogley building and down in OITE. We have all kinds of portraits. All kinds of portraits. In fact, we have a number of portrait galleries here. We all know about the Hall of Presidents, that's why this is the President's Dining Room, because that's where those photos were. And then they were consigned to the closet, and then they were moved to the library, and now they grace the wall outside of the board's office. But we also have this huge collection of editors. We have a smaller collection of program directors, and then this group here. So there's a lot of galleries. And then plenty of sports photography. We should document it. And what about these? The specialty enlargements. And here's one we didn't do. The old photos in the student center before it became SSAP. We didn't document them. They were there from 1973 until it was redone. What about these? photos on plastic, and photos on glass, and photos on metal. Things that we at least must consider. And then we have photo montages. Okay, they're commercially made. You go online, you pump in the things, and it pumps out the stuff. But shouldn't we at least document it? And we have a few reliefs. And we have some rubbings. I don't think they're from actual monuments, but they were made in Cambodia. And they're beautiful pieces. They're wonderful to look at. Of course, we have all kinds of sculptures, some of them public and well-known, as Lincoln Spire put up for the 18th president of the university. Philip Smith piece. This one down in the Consulate Center. This monkey is another one of Kent's donations is in the library. But there's other sculptures that aren't quite as well known. Certainly the wonderful small sculptures over in the Jaeger House that document Chinese society in the late 1930s. Of course, this beautiful collection in 1/7, the beautiful works of Native American art. And then the Tim Alexander. It's probably the least noticed and longest displayed work of sculpture in university history. It's been in the entrance to Monero building since 1993. And most of the people in this room don't even know it's there. And how about the stained glass? Because I did everything possible to try to figure out who did it. No one remembers. I asked Steve Morgan, I asked Bill Ralph, I asked Marlon Heckman, I asked all kinds of people. Nobody remembers it. You can go see it, but you've got to go around and look at it from the library parking lot. Although you could ask the librarians if they'll let you into their great room. Of course, we have textiles, lots of textiles, lots of Native American textiles, lots of international textiles. Our textile collection, secret number 24. And we have watercolors. I went to the president's office to take this picture because my students missed it. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. And this beautiful piece, which Alita and Donna gave to the university, and Wilson Library 160. And then the Gladys Muir pieces, I understand that some people dispute that they're not Gladys Muir's. And these, the Shelley Lippold watercolors out in the Roman Mansion. Watercolors that are a set piece that talk about what we now call the regional campuses as they exist, at least their ambience, in the 1990s. So here's the conclusions. The university owns some very exciting works of art. The university needs, in my opinion, to preserve and protect its own collection. Some of the works of the art collection are not what they purport to be. But we've created a baseline. Much needs to be done, but we've started it. We need to detail it, we need to expand it, and we need to correct it. What might be done next? University courses guide students to correct, enhance, and expand the collection. Formally catalog the artworks using a further refined classification and appropriate numbering system. We'll call number system so we know exactly what we have. Make the art collections catalog a shield against further damage or loss to the university art collection. The most vulnerable times are construction, renovation, and the coming of new personnel. New personnel say, you know, I don't like that Joel and Mahoney, I gotta stick it in the plaza. Or I want to make a new president's dining room, so let's get rid of the president's pictures. This sort of thing. With the University Art Collections catalog secured and reserved, we can encourage additional donations of artwork. Create labels for the artwork. Doing this work, I go out there and try to figure out who did this and what did that. Ultimately, you have to go back to the source, and the source, of course, is Dion. He knows everything on every wall and who did it and when. Display selections of art collections of the regional campus, and then create a museum. Kent has been pushing for this museum for a long time. It'd be nice to be able to those and our natural history works and our cultural collections, what can be done to shield from further loss and damage? Make art and architecture a required consideration along with price, need, and location before renovation or new construction. I understand why we sold those 77 pieces of art. They were in storage. They were worth $100,000. No one knew that they were there, but it would be nice to have them. It would be nice to have them. They were donated. They were kept for a while. It seems to me we need to make this part of the decision-making process. When a decision to destroy or demolish is made, take care to fully document the art and architecture first. Since Kent's here, we'll talk about the museum. We're in the midst of the strategic planning process. put it on the list, right? Once it's there, it can become an object of fundraising. We have a marvelous art, cultural, and natural history collection that deserve to be seen by staff, public, and school children. If we cannot build one, not repurpose part. At the very least, safe storage is needed. Because, look at this. Here's how the Dia de los Muertos is currently stored. Behind the door. What can you do? You can take some walking tours. Art donated to the University House. All the pieces that Kent did, including the one that's on loan. The contemporary art at the University of La Verne, by the definition of MoCA. Multicultural art. We have such a wonderful variety of multicultural art. And then the 27 secrets that I just talked about. Kent went around and introduced every piece in the University House, and I put it together into a video, and then art and writing. John Lever talked a great deal about that. Ian Johnson talked about it, so we have a second one. Times change, tastes change, personnel changes, but art endures. Conserve it, preserve it, and if neither is possible, document it before it's destroyed.